Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. A coaching change in the NFL as the San Francisco 49ers have fired defensive coordinator Steve Wilks after being there for only one season. Kyle Shanahan stating yesterday it was not the right fit. Also a staff change in Knoxville as Josh Heupel will look to replace linebackers coach Brian Jean-Marie, who is going back to Michigan, where he came from when Heupel initially hired him. Jean-Marie will join Sharon Moore's staff in Ann Arbor. It's the second position coach hire Heupel will have to make this offseason as running backs coach Jerry Mack departed for the same position with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Nashville Predators homestand continues tonight as they host the Central Division leading Dallas Stars at Bridgestone Arena. Puck drop is set for 7 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Let's do it. Let's get things rolling here on a Thursday edition of Blaine and Mickey. We always kind of get into this that if it's Thursday, it's after lunch on Thursday. It's essentially the weekend now. So we'll start the weekend with Rhett Bryan, who joins me today and tomorrow while Blaine gets some R&R. Was there ever a time in your life, because I'll tell you this, I originally moved to Nashville in the 90s.
Okay.
And my friend Chris Cry, rest in peace, who I moved down here and I worked with him, and this is my real estate days. We had a band and we were going to conquer the world. We had it all figured out, like, everybody does at that age. And I come down here. I was living in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I was a TV anchor. And at this time, you're rock DJ. Like, you're ruling the world down here. I hadn't even met you yet. And so I'm like, so he's like, we're going to go to something called Dancing in the District. And I was like, dancing in the district. And he's like, I said, I'm not really much of a dancer. And he said, you don't have to dance, man. That's just the name of it.
Yeah.
And I said, what is it? And he goes, every Thursday, once the weather gets warm, until the weather gets cold, downtown on the river, bands play for free. I said, oh, like, maybe we could play it. And he's like, not a chance. These are a national act. A second.
The Black Eyed Peas played at Dancing in the District one time.
I saw Courtney Love. I saw everybody there.
Right.
And he said, no, it's different than that. He said, a national act that has been around, like a national act that's on the come up.
Right.
Then a regional act, and then maybe whomever the best local act to pair with them, that would be the bill on any given Thursday night. And I said, so how much is it again? He goes, it's nothing. It's free.
Right.
And the
Riverfront Park.
Dude, there's people listening who are like, oh, man, like that's hitting them right in the feels. Young people don't know what I'm talking about. If you're new, if you're one of the 26 people who moved here yesterday, you never got to experience this. This were during the days of like eat lunch at the Cooker.
The Cooker on West End.
The Rio Bravo porch. Remember the patio outside?
Sure, where Stony River is now, yeah.
You would see everybody there.
Mm-hmm.
You would go to the hostess stand and you'd be like, how long till outside? And she'd be like, it's like a 3-hour wait to get out there right now. But there's 38 tables in here. Be like, nah, I'll wait. You would wait for something to open up outside.
Sure.
It was just a different place then. Broadway was.
Satco, too.
Oh, my gosh. There was a second Satco. There was one downtown.
2nd Avenue North.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those were different times. But Jim freaking Nance says on the F&M Bank chat, I remember those days. Jay Breezy said, I'm 25. I've never heard of anything. No, you've heard of your stuff. This is just a different time.
That's right.
This is when you were born.
Well, Dancing in the District, you're right. That was an annual Thursday thing. In fact, our our colleague here in the building, Lisa Manning, who works on 95.5 Nash Icon, she and I were both on this station when it was classic rock. And we would take turn. We would go introduce the acts on stage. They'd bring a person out. Hey, everybody, hope you're having a good night tonight. Please welcome the Black Eyed Peas. I don't know.
The
whatever.
Outfield.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. So we would do, we would have a roster, duty roster, and have to go. And so we would wait it was on a barge on the Cumberland River, and then all of the space up the the Riverfront Park there was open for everyone to sit down and do whatever. And so we would kind of the backstage area was an adjacent barge that you would, be back there. But yeah, a lot of Thursday nights, no question.
So at that point in my life, I realized that the start of the weekend is Thursday. It's Thursday. Don't make it Friday. It's Thursday. Friday's just a speed bump on the way to the next night of the weekend, the work day on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. So welcome to the weekend. That's what we're getting at.
Friday Eve.
Friday Eve is what it is, exactly. It's pretty much, except for 10% of the coach, it's completing the coaching staff Eve right now for Brian Callahan. He said 90% yesterday.
Right.
I know you got to hear this and take part in the press conference. Brian Callahan, Nick Holz, Dennard Wilson all spoke yesterday. It really went well into the show. We reacted to it some, and Blaine and I talked about it. Just kind of curious, as a guy who has been a part of Titans Radio, again, Rhett Bryan, the executive producer of Titans Radio, you've seen a lot of staffs come and go. You've seen them all introduced. You've been to all their press conferences. You've taped them all. You've cut them up. You've listened to them. Seriously, like you're somebody who has consumed every day like this pretty much that we've had around here
for over a quarter of a century.
When somebody with a Titans logo on their shirt, which is odd, Callahan didn't have one yesterday.
Yes,
he had no company logo, but you've consumed all of those over and over again. I'm curious to hear where you are after consuming what we all consumed yesterday together.
Well, it's good to know someone like Coach Dave McGinnis who knew Dennard Wilson like he knows everybody in the league. It's the 6 degrees of not Kevin Bacon, but Coach Dave McGinnis.
Yes.
And was telling me what a good dude Dennard Wilson is. And first of all, love the fact that they were able to get him and have him as the defensive coordinator. When you look at his last couple of stops, I mean, DBs in Baltimore, not bad there.
Yeah.
D-line and a defensive quality assistant or whatever in a couple of years in Philly, not bad there. So clearly he's got, some feathers in his cap and has had a long career in the NFL before making it to what basically he described yesterday as his dream job, and talking about how it's good to be a Tennessee Titan and how he's admired the franchise from afar, even back to its days in Houston. And I like a lot of what he said. The attacking style and the identity of the defense and the identity of what he's looking for in a defensive back, since that's what he worked in the back third tier of the defense last year for the Baltimore Ravens. But yeah, I like he seems like a guy that certainly knows what he wants, knows what he's doing. Nick Holz came away enjoying just the conversation, because obviously he and Brian Callahan were high school teammates at De La Salle High School in California. So they go way back. And he had a nice cut about their 1 year of working together on the Raiders staff many years ago. But they've been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And just kind of seeing what his ideas are and kind of, getting a little peek into what their philosophies are on offense and defense. And then I think the other thing is Brian Callahan talking about leaning on his staff for, all the things that he needs. And in fact, going back to Nick Holt's part of it, describing what Nick Holtz's role is. And he said he's going to keep everything running in the moments that I can't be there because there's some critical prep each week that I deem critical. And but yeah, there's a lot of things you can pull out of these conversations that they had yesterday.
I think there was some consternation maybe with people about Nick Holz being young and not having any. Well, he was at UNLV for 1 year as a coordinator, and you can see Titans fans are vocal. And not everybody who listens to this show is on social media, and it's not the end all be all. But you can kind of stick your toe in the water and get a sample size of maybe how people feel about something.
Sure.
And Titans fans seem to have more consternation maybe about the Nick Holz hire than the Dennard Wilson hire. And both of them have never, well, again, one had 1 year of college experience calling plays, none at the NFL level.
Sure.
But after hearing Dennard Wilson yesterday, to me, he spoke like a guy who, even though this is his first time to get this opportunity, he sounded like a guy who is like wise beyond his years. Does that make sense? Like wise beyond even his experience level. And he talked about working with Greg Williams. And it's funny because Blaine for people who don't know, Blaine played for Greg Williams as the Titans defense coordinator. And when you talked about guys, just his mix of experience and who he's worked with and the places that he's been, it's like, no, this guy sounds like he sounds like somebody who's been there and done that, even if he hasn't called plays.
Sure.
And Nick Holz, his deal was more conversational, but I did think it was funny. I don't know what the context of the question was, but I was reading through the transcript last night. I didn't remember him saying this, but he's like, 2 weeks ago, I'd never imagined something like this would happen. Like his career has kind of caught a rocket ship here with Callahan getting this opportunity.
But he has 11 years of experience in the NFL as an assistant, too.
Yes.
That's what people, just because you don't necessarily hear a guy's name or know a guy, the NFL is a tight circle.
Yep.
That's one of the reasons why everybody in the world knows Coach Dave McGinnis. Players, coaches, evaluators, whatever. It's a really tighter, smaller circle than people realize. And you start growing a reputation for being a reliable person and being good at X or Y or Z. Those things get around. And this is not – I don't necessarily think this is Brian Callahan just hiring his high school buddy. I think he's qualified for the job. And Dennard Wilson, again, I look at just his last 2 stops and go, yep, that's legit. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I think that a lot of the media corps was trying to pick into things of, okay, we have a head coach who's never called the 30,000-foot view, all 3 phases type of deal, and yet he's also going to be calling the offensive plays. We have a defensive coordinator who's never done that in that position. They still haven't hired the special teams coordinator in this. So, I mean, there's a lot of firsts in this. But, I just think about, and I'm not saying Brian Callahan is Sean McVay, but, I mean, younger coaches that get opportunities don't always have the experience until they've earned it to get there, and then they've got to prove it. Now, the biggest thing, in my opinion, that Brian Callahan has in his back pocket, for lack of a better term, is he has a dad who is a fantastic coach and a really good offensive line coach to have as a sounding board there. And there's a lot of guys on this. I mean, you heard Dennard Wilson talk about Frank Bush coming back for a second tour of duty as a line. He's a really good linebacker coach, really good. Tracy Rocker has had got his start here with the Titans back 2011. He was here with Munchak. There's some really good assistants in here, and it's not one guy; it's the collective parts. All the sum is greater than the whole parts, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, look, this is what happens when things change and when the owner decides to make a move and go in a different direction. You knew there weren't a whole lot of people are going to be retained. There are some. Mm-hmm. There's a few. Lori Locust is back. I think that's great. I love the fact that they kept Chris Harris, Justin Outen. Mm-hmm. I think there's several people there that were very talented and qualified.
Yeah, several coaches actually stuck around. The Titans sent out a whole list. You mentioned Chris Harris, Justin Outen, Anthony Levine, Clinton McMillan, Lori Locust, Kylan Butler, Matt Jones. There were several names, maybe names that people don't know just off the top of their heads.
Sure.
But if you're down there and you're around there, these are people you encounter or get to know over time. So, yes, they actually did wind up keeping a large chunk of people. They did clean out – well, they didn't clean it out. It cleaned itself out. Frank Perrano left and took another job as part of that Underground Railroad of Titans coaches to New York.
Yes, and players too, for that matter. Frank Perrano, now the strength and conditioning coach for the New York Giants. I think it's interesting that his assistants in that department were retained, though.
Yes.
Brian Banks, and I apologize for the other two. I cannot remember their names. But all of those are still in place. So there's going to be a new strength and conditioning coach, and there's going to be a new special teams coordinator. But outside of those couple of things, there's, it's pretty much ready to roll. They've already been having team meetings, in terms of the staff discussing what they need to discuss.
Well, we got a lot more to discuss. Buck Reising is going to join us next. Rhett Bryan again hanging out for Blaine today. We'll have time to take your calls now that you've had a chance to listen to and hear everything that you've listened to and heard. We'll have open phone lines for part of the show today, 26157371045. But when we come back, Buck Reising, we'll get his reaction to the new OC and DC and more. Do all that next on Blaine and Mickey, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. All right. Just about midway point now of February of 2024. Let me ask you, how are those New Year's resolutions going? You've been going to the gym a couple times, 3 times a week. Maybe you did that. Maybe you're looking for the next great job. Maybe you're going to eat better, so you're meal prepping. I don't know. You got your own New Year's resolutions. Maybe one of them was get your hair back with PAI, with WeGrowHair.com. Maybe that was one of your resolutions. Heck, maybe that's been a resolution now for you for several years, but for some reason you didn't do it. They are waiting to take your call, 615-376-6010. Here's what they're waiting to do. They're going to put you on their schedule. They're just down the road in Brentwood. They're going to give you a free consultation. They're going to take some pictures. They're going to show you up close, hey, here's what you're dealing with. Here's how you got here. Here's how we can fix it. Doesn't cost you anything to go on that free consultation. And guess what? You can afford what they're going to tell you that they're going to do because they'll work with you on how you pay for it. New Year's resolution to get your hair back? Do it. Stop waiting. Go get those permanent natural results from the company you can trust. PAI Medical Group, WeGrowHair.com. Call them now. 615-376-6010. Anytime you get Buck Rising on your show, you're winning. That's the way that works. Blaine and Mickey, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. You can also win if you buy a car from Two Rivers Ford, home of the non-commissioned salespeople. They've been doing it down there, like this band Santana. They just been doing it forever and doing it the right way.
Did I tell you about the time met Carlos Santana? KDF was then a rock station, and we did just a house show at Starwood, and he was the headliner. He was the only act, and went backstage at Starwood, and he had a ping pong table set up, and he was really good at. He smoked me in ping pong like nobody's, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll play, sure." I'm like. It's like playing Forrest Gump, dude. You're done. It's over. He was great. He's a really nice guy, though.
Okay, Buck, top that. You ever got beat by a rock Hall of Famer in ping pong?
No. I watched Will Levis beat Trevor Lawrence in ping pong at Vegas over the weekend, but nothing quite that cool.
There it is.
Now, here's why I like hanging out. I always like doing the Blaine and Mickey show, of course, but I love hanging out with Rhett and Mickey in particular because the length and breadth of local radio knowledge that the two of you possess. I was listening to a podcast that I really like called East Nashville Yacht Club. They interview a bunch of different people that have been, staples of the Nashville community, do different things in Nashville. And I can't remember the name of the agent that was with or manager that was with one of the acts that they were interviewing at the time, but they put him on a microphone. He was talking about Rhett Bryan. Titans Radio executive producer Rhett Bryan. They came up together in the business. I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, Rhett. It just came into my mind when you started talking about KDF and Carlos Santana. But it's always.
I'll have to go back and find that episode.
I will send you the episode, and I will send
fantastic.
you the timestamp because I went quickly to look for it on my phone, and it didn't say the gentleman's name. But
it's okay.
It was. It's just cool to know that the two of you, as Blaine and so many other people at the Zone and with Cumulus, have seen all different kinds of people and all different kinds of eras of radio in some form or fashion in the city.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we started the show by talking about today is Thursday, and they used to have a thing called Dancing in the District at Riverfront Park. It later became drinking in the district is what they ended up calling it if you went to it frequently.
Down for most.
It was headliner acts. I mean, like we would introduce, because we were the rock station, we would introduce the acts a lot of times. I'd go up and, hey, how we doing tonight?
So Jim freaking Nance said, Drive-By Truckers, Blues Traveler, They Might Be Giants, Seether, Blondie, Collective Soul, Indigo Girls, George Clinton.
Yes. Like
for
big
free.
Time.
For free.
On a barge
downtown.
on the river, and all of the Riverfront Park stuff was where you sat. But hey, one of the greatest nights of my life, though, they had a Music City Blues Festival in that same type setup one night. And I wasn't introducing anybody, but I had some privileges to be able to meet some people. And this is when Eric Johnson had Cliffs of Dover, and he was really big at that time. He played that night. Etta James played that night. B.B. King played that night. Buddy Guy played that night. I met B.B. I met Buddy Guy. It was fantastic.
Legends.
I will never, ever, ever forget that night.
Any table tennis involved with this?
None. No. I did get to hold Lucille the guitar, though.
Whoa.
Oh, no.
That's huge.
Dude.
That transcends generations.
That just knocked me for a loop.
Yeah, I didn't wash my hands for about a week.
I don't think I would have washed
That's a day that ends in Y, though. So anyway.
All right. So
listen, I'm just trying to get over the image that I have in my head of Fergie on a barge on the Cumberland River singing my humps.
Happened.
I don't know what to do with it.
Hole and Courtney Love, everybody played down there. It's Thursday night and it was free, and you could go and
free.
Yes, sir.
Free.
Free.
No admission.
No charge.
No.
It was underwritten by sponsors.
What is this, the Super Bowl halftime show?
It was like the Parks and Recreation.
They got paid, but it was all underwritten by. Was it Tomcats?
Yes.
It was all underwritten by.
And Tomcats Catering was where we would be eating food and whatever and waiting to go up and go, all right, time to introduce the next act.
Local businesses paid the freight for that, for you to get it for free.
And it wasn't junk. It was good stuff.
No, it was 4 good acts, like a national. Anyway, we were talking. So
do that again, local businesses.
Yeah,
I would like to be
so
part
let's
of something
pivot
like
to
that.
this. Obviously, those are things maybe you didn't know. So let me ask you this. You heard from the coordinators yesterday and Callahan again. What do you know now about that situation, maybe that you didn't know before yesterday?
Oh, it's a good question. I like just the level of detail that they are willing to provide. Now, Dennard Wilson's situation is a little bit more nebulous because I think they've got a lot, ironically enough, there's a lot of questions on the defensive side of the roster that we really, at least Lucas and I have just now started to kind of dig in on, and I thought the answer about, well, what do you think your base defense might be? So, well, let me tell you who's going to play for me, and then we'll figure out what exactly the base defense is going to be. But the level of detail on what it means to call plays and how the bulk of that legwork is done before you ever set foot on the field at Nissan Stadium or Lucas Oil or whatever, and the process of that and how integrally involved Nick Holz is going to be and why that worked with Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan the way that it did, and how it's kind of a slow burn. Brian Callahan had 5 years doing that job before they had it to a fine-tuned machine, right? What's going to be the learning curve for Nick Holz? He was, I would call it, mostly deferential in the press conference. I know you guys carried a portion of it on at the start of your show, mostly deferential to Callahan. But the thing I learned the most is that they are going, at least for the time being, they are very forthcoming in ways that most coaches are not. And I appreciate that level of detail because I'm just, like Titans fans and like the two of you, and I'm just trying to learn more. Just trying to learn more. And there's a lot of coaches who do this job who don't think it's their job to teach media people how to do football. And that's fine. They got a million things going on. That's okay. I'm not mad at them. They're sleeping on pull-out couches, eating Chinese for Thanksgiving, and grinding tape. You got bigger issues. But, as I try to learn more about this new coaching staff and about the way that they're going to go do their business and how big a philosophical shift this is actually, I did feel like I came away with a handful of different takeaways from all three gentlemen.
Hanging out with Buck Reising here on Blaine and Mickey with Rhett filling in for Blaine.
The other thing I wanted to pick your brain about is just not only we're starting to see a little bit of their philosophies defensively, offensively, and you're right, as far as Dennard Wilson is like, tell me who I've got, and then we'll go from there.
He's got General George Patton.
He does have General George Patton. I thought it was interesting that both of them, both he and Nick Holz, were very ready to reel off the principles and things that they live by and that their styles. And then, but to hear Dennard Wilson, what he described that he likes and what he thinks a defensive back should be. I thought that was interesting. And it was a question set up because, that's his last stop was DB's coach for the Baltimore Ravens. But I think the other part of it is I didn't come away thinking that Brian Callahan had just hired his high school buddy on offense in this. The guy earned it, and I think can bring some things to the table. You get the same impression?
Yeah, Holtz just texting a bunch of people around the league and stuff like that, just trying to learn more about these guys and their background, their work ethic, this, that, and the other. Holtz is a little bit of a lesser-known commodity, even though he's been around for
11 years,
for a long time. Wilson, people glow about, both from Philadelphia and Baltimore and his previous stops there. But Holtz is definitely, it's interesting to see use an SAT word, dichotomy between the defensive coordinator and the mindset, the attitude, the verbiage that they're using versus the more, I don't want to say more analytical, but just a little bit more reserved type of approach that Nick Holtz is taking to this whole thing. This is a person who has plenty of experience. He's seen a lot of different football situations. I love that he's been in a bunch of different schemes because it doesn't just have to be all 11 personnel all the time because you hired a head coach from the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they're going to have to find different ways to win with the personnel that they've got on the roster right now and the personnel that will be here in a month from now and the personnel that will be added additionally at the end of the month in April. So that he has that variety of coaches in his background, the variety of different systems that he's operated in, I think this is somebody that Brian Callahan, this is basically like his work relation, his work wife, right? This is the person that he's going to spend the most time with, game planning, scheming, bouncing ideas off of each other. This is the person that he's going to be as close to as any is that in that building, and one of the people in the building is his father. Mm-hmm. So I think that there is good insight to be gleaned from that. I think it's going to be an interesting growth pattern or growth curve for them. Sounds like they bonded a lot during the 1 year that they spent together on John Gruden's staff with the Raiders. And, obviously going back to De La Salle High School, they're familiar with each other. They're both in the same age range. So, in fact, I think they're both 39. These two are going to have to be able to finish each other's sentences. And based on the press conference, again, you don't win anything at a press conference, but I do get the vibe that they are on the same brain wavelengths.
Did you feel better about two first-time play callers after the press conference yesterday when you heard both of them speak and you also heard Brian Callahan speak, who will be calling them on offense?
No, the thing that makes me feel the best about three people in a new role for the first time at the top of the food chain is who their support staffs are.
Yeah.
I mean, people who have I don't got to tell you guys about Steve Jackson and Frank Bush and Tracy Rocker because they've been here in a variety of different stops. Those are very, very highly respected positional coaches. You have a wealth of experience in Bill Callahan, who has done literally every job on the offensive side of the football, it seems, that you would have to, whether it's calling plays, being a head coach, offensive line coach, across decades in the league, is one of the most respected people doing his job and can be that ultimate sounding board for his son. Everything that is new at the top is supported well and put together well, whether it's Tyke Tolbert, who's been coaching the same position for all kinds of different teams across 20 years and getting the best out of wide receivers, right? This is the thing that makes me feel the best about the challenge that is ahead of them is that they have the right people in place who have seen all kinds of different people go through this role and are here to help them do the exact same.
Buck Reising hanging out with us here on the Blaine and Mickey program.
It surprised you that Nick Holz said what he did about Will Levis in terms of, I mean, it made sense that didn't watch him a whole lot in the draft process because they had Trevor Lawrence. He was with Jacksonville. But just that it sounded like he had just started to kind of just really look at the breakdowns in the film and the cut-ups and those things.
Yeah, a little bit, because it's not like Will Levis was some unheralded prospect. Like the Will Levis cut-ups have been out there for forever. I mean, basically since he was started to be viewed as a prospect when he got the opportunity at Kentucky. So a little surprised. There's a lot of moving parts with this, though. I know everybody's got to figure out, all right, where am I going to live? How am I going to get my family to Nashville? What's the school situation? All these different things. So it did surprise me a bit, but I don't think it's going to be too difficult for them to kind of figure out what they have. And Will Levis, I think, on principle, they understand what this player is capable of and how much further they can bring the best out of him, and they're absolutely going to have to. Bo Hardigree is probably the most important person for the development of Will Levis because that's the person he's going to spend the most time with, the quarterback's coach. But Nick Holz and Brian Callahan are going to be as involved in getting the best version of that quarterback as humanly possible. And I think that for Holz, you can tell a variety of things right away when you put on any Titans game that Will Levis started last year. He's red-faced. He's screaming. He can rip it down the field. He can make a throw to any part of the field. It's about the off-target throws that they have to find ways to refine. Of course, some of that has to do with protection and system and skill position players that they have. They had the slowest wide receiver core in football last year on top of one of the worst offensive lines. So, he's working uphill on a variety of different things. But the thing, Rhett, that you want him to tell you or that you want to hear if you're a Titans fan is that we saw him learn in real time. We saw him in a variety of different situations that can only be gleaned from real live game experience. Had they kept him as the third-string quarterback for whatever reason throughout the course of the year that he would never have gotten. So at least they have a larger sample, a pretty large sample size. Nine starts, a large sample size of film to work through, pros, cons, and that they are going to build a system specifically tailored to the best version of that quarterback, and that they're open to the amount of feedback that they are. Apparently they've been, talking to him the entire time while they've been making these hires and kind of filling him in on all these different things. So I don't think there's going to be too much difficulty on everybody getting on the same page with Will Levis. It's just about, the process of figuring out what he likes, what he doesn't, and what works the best for him.
Well, and Buck, to follow up, the thing I think that you kind of led to right there is they get the benefit of seeing in particular the 2023 rookie class, who got a lot of work, come into fruition and take that number 2 year leap.
Huge.
Whether it's Will Levis or Tajay or, Josh Wiley, you got to figure out how to get his core strength and things together so that he can stay on the football field. They have the rare luxury of seeing Peter Skoronski in year 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these are going to be interesting conversations moving forward because the 2023 class is critically important. It seems like they've got a variety of different players that can help them. It's just about filling out the support around them, and we know that they need a tremendous amount of support filled out around them in this draft and free agency process. But again, all of them played in some form or fashion, from Colton Dowell to Will Levis to Tajay Spears and
to undrafteds.
And what did Vrabel call him? Cheddar Bob? Josh Wiley? Cheddar Bob. Yeah, he's out.
8 Mile.
Man,
I saw him at Kroger the other day. It's just a giant human being. It's just a giraffe walking around in Kroger. It looks completely out of place.
Tajay Spears is who I thought he was, and Will Levis, in a lot of ways, who we thought he was, good prospect. We'll see what happens. After watching training camp every day and going to practice, and Josh Wiley is such a different person size-wise.
Yeah.
I had a friend ask me, okay, what's the deal with this tight end guy? I said, man, he could be a red zone target for them. He's so much bigger. And then that just never happened. Nothing like that happened.
Yeah, but he did get better. Like Chig's late stage kind of come up made me feel better about the tight end position. Wiley, he started to execute well in their blocking scheme, which was not something that was on his repertoire or high on his repertoire coming out of Cincy. I like a lot of this. I'm curious, though, what both of you think about the idea of how much of the 2023 Titans would you watch beyond the individual players to try and learn about these guys versus trying to apply different things that you want to bring in from different teams to the personnel that you have now? I think it's an interesting kind of like, how do you split your time, basically? Because you obviously have to watch what they did last year, but you don't want to spend too much time on what it is beyond like the individual traits and skill set of the players.
Well, in terms of the film, because there's quite a bit of bad film, but you definitely want to look at, I guarantee you Brian Callahan's probably went back and visited, because he mentioned it yesterday, the day they beat Cincinnati. They played really good football that day.
Yes.
They did. So
Traylon Burke's best game of the year.
Yeah. So, and see, there's some of your questions that I think there's a list of is, what do they think of Traylon Burks? What do they do with Traylon Burks? How, going into year 3, there's a laundry list of questions. You guys have been pounding the pavement with this, since the season ended, and probably even down the stretch as things got bad.
Well, for me, it is going to be so interesting to see how they kind of work through all this, because there are so many potential reclamation projects on the roster, right? It's Radens, it's NPF, it's Traylon, it's Kyle Phillips. It's a variety of different people that you're not, you're probably more out on than in on in certain cases. But how much of the time is the coaching staff going to put into trying to salvage some of these parts, or how much of it is, okay, this is not really our type of guy, because now it's a new GM that drafted a handful of those dudes and a new head coach that's coming into this situation. And just like, putting together your own coaching staff, your own strength and conditioning staff, like, you want your own dudes.
Not all of the puzzle pieces fit.
So I'm curious to see who comes out of that as, all right, here's somebody worth investing in. This is somebody who can help us transition from system to system, and who ends up on the outs as a part of that too. Because I think there's
a handful of the rookies that, Tajay, you figure, yep. Will Levis, yep. A guy like, and this is the different phase, but, making sure Ryan Stonehouse is back to where he needs to be as one of your better weapons as the punter, flipping the field. But, you can start to make a list. Skoronski,
Oh, my God, no. Dylan Radens in a contract here. Can you do anything with him to make him a functioning offensive lineman? Bill Callahan is the best in the business. NPF and Radens, dudes like that who have been here. Radens heading into year 4, which is crazy. That we're still having this discussion, but if they can figure out something, because they can't fix it all, right?
Right.
They can't all be done in one offseason, despite
unfortunately, no
8 draft picks and a ton of money. Like, You can't do it all. So what is here right now that they think that they can help or that can help them right away? Because while I think we all understand that a left tackle is very much in this team's future in some form or fashion in the next couple of months, can you figure out a right guard situation to stopgap it? If not, solve it. Can you figure out a right tackle situation to stopgap? If not, solve it. Can Raiden's NPF, Jalen Duncan, can any of those guys that exist here already
How about a center?
be a part of that solution? I don't want to watch Aaron Brewer play anymore. I'm sorry, Brewer. You're a
If
nice
there's
guy.
a problem, let's hope they solve it. Check out the hook while my DJ revolves it. We got to let Buck baby get out of here. Buck, thank you, man. What do you say to that? I just totally dropped a whole line of Vanilla Ice on you.
Well, you called me baby at the end, so I don't know what to make of it.
I'll always
boys.
call you baby. All right, we'll get out of here. One of the things we got into a little bit yesterday, Jordan DeJani, veteran quarterback, right? We're talking roster building. I told Rhett Bryan, curious to get his thoughts on that. There are a bunch of options out there for this team. Maybe there's somebody you like. 615-737-1045.
Hey, Tennessee, it's Blaine Bishop here. With the unpredictable weather hitting us hard, it's crucial you ensure your home is equipped for many challenges. So don't let the next power outage catch you off guard. And Cool Ray's Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electrical has your back. And they're offering an incredible $1,500 off select at-home generators. Yes, you heard it right, $1,500 off. Don't gamble with your family's safety. Act now and secure your peace of mind with one of Cool Ray's whole home generators. And if that's not enticing enough, take advantage of their $49 tune-up for your HVAC system. It's perfect for ensuring your home stays comfortable in any weather. And if you've been thinking about upgrading to a new HVAC system, they're offering free estimates on replacements. Their expert comfort consultants are ready to guide you toward that perfect solution for your home. And Cool Ray keeps Cool Raying you all day long. Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and lights bright. Visit CoolRay.com and take control of your home's comfort and safety. That's CoolRay.com.
I don't know. Turn out the lights and I'll glow. Why did you play this? I'll never get this. I know I referenced it to Bach, but I will never get this out of my head now, Joseph.
Sorry.
Like a poisonous mushroom.
Rob Van Winkle.
He owns, like, apparently all of the real estate in the world now. If he's listening, he is apparently a very successful real estate person. He owns.
I met him at the height of that song, too,
Yeah.
at TPAC.
Did you introduce him?
Did not.
Did
but
you say
we
he will
did
play
go
Ice
backstage
Baby
to
and
meet him.
other
a
songs?
Record rep like begged us to go because he didn't want to go, and he was actually a nice guy. And I mean, in the height of like this was number one with a bullet, kind of like hot, white hot.
I had a college friend, a guy who played football at Arkansas State, and went to high school with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, man, he had this whole persona. He had it all figured out. And so he
Did
just
okay with it, huh?
rode it all the way to the top of the charts.
Yes, sir.
I don't think that Vanilla Ice will play backup quarterback for the Titans this next year, but they got to find somebody.
Yep.
And Blaine, we had Jordan DeJani on yesterday, and Blaine just dropped that on him. And DeJani was like, ooh, that's a good question.
Hang on just a second.
And he pulled Andy Dalton out of his butt, and he said, I know he's under contract, but he said, do they want a guy like that? Do they want like the veteran, like the OG, older veteran, who's almost like in the quarterback room, like another coach?
Sure.
And so we were throwing out names. I said, well, the O of OGs right now who's available would be Flacco.
Yes.
I mean, he's available, but you have to talk him back out of the carpool line. But
That's right.
dude, there are so many people who are veteran backup type guys who are free agents.
I printed the list and gave it to you and Blaine.
It's
looking at it right
astounding
now.
this year. And looking at Spot Track, too, because you can get, ideas on what their value. There are tons of those guys available.
All right, so let's just run down free agent quarterbacks, and we'll do them all, including potential backups and starters. Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, and I'm going to circle back to a couple. Jake Browning, Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz, Jameis Winston, Sam Darnold, Tyrod Taylor, Tyler Huntley with the Ravens. That's interesting to me.
Former Pro Bowler.
Mitchell Trubisky, Easton Stick, Joe Flacco, Chase Daniel, it says free agent, Mason Rudolph, Marcus Mariota, Kyle Allen, Drew Lock. Now, three I left out that I think are interesting. And this may spark a fire because people either love or hate this guy, but what if Gardner Minshew was the backup quarterback? I don't know. I mean, you could do worse.
I would take Gardner Minshew as the backup quarterback 11 out of 10 times. And I'm not being – I would take him as the backup quarterback 11 out of 10 times.
I think you posed the question to me is, do you want that guy with that big of a personality to be your backup, knowing that you want to try to see Will Levis be the guy? I mean, that's a valid question. So maybe that wouldn't work. I don't know. Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what it is about Jacoby Brissett. Like, we're talking about a backup quarterback. Somebody can get you through. He could get you through. And then the other one is the obvious one, and I would love to see him come back, is Joshua Dobbs. Smart guy. Got kind of thrown into the fire. They went through, 4 quarterbacks in one season up there in Minnesota after Kirk Cousins went down with the injury. They had Jaron Hall, their 5th-round pick from BYU that we saw at the Senior Bowl last year. Anyway, I wouldn't hate it. Would not hate Joshua Dobbs. Just got to say that.
Here's the one there were several things I noticed about Dobbs. Obviously, all of us here who lived here got to see his college career. I loved watching him play college football. I did. I called him Houdini because he'd go back to pass, and there'd be 6 guys that went to tackle him, and then suddenly you'd just see him like rolling out right or left, like he just disappeared and then reappeared outside that clump of guys. I loved watching him play. The comeback against South Carolina is one of the wildest things I've ever seen at a Tennessee game. But just him in the locker room, it was like he'd been there 10 years. He and Jim Wyatt were joking it up, and just he fit in because he seems like a great guy. I've been around him, like all of us, a couple times. He did Sports Fest. He fit in so well. And Mike Vrabel, who's no longer here, but was doing an interview after the season, and he referenced him like he was just still on the team. And at that point, he was a free agent. But that shows you how much, in a tiny amount of time, he endeared himself to the team. It was crazy.
And with money situations that they were so strapped with last year, they couldn't, and I know people are this will probably start another fire, and I'm not trying to be the arsonist today.
We didn't start the fire.
We did not start the fire, William Joel. I just, he got a number that they couldn't match. And so now knowing that they have money to be able to spend, you could get him and still not have to break the bank to back up Will Levis. And I really like him. He's a solid human being and smart fellow, as we know. And now he's gotten some reps under his belt that would be valuable as a backup.
His market value per Old Spot Track is 1 year, $6.7 million.
It wouldn't be bad.
1 year, $6.7 million. Maybe you make it a 2-year deal. You can spread out
Sure.
You can spread it out a little bit over a couple of years. So, yeah, he'd be an interesting guy. I don't know anybody who would argue with that. And you're right, he's gotten some reps. It's interesting when he started for the Titans after being here a week and a half or whatever it was. He had never started an NFL game.
And he'd been, 6 years on rosters and never had the opportunity.
And if I'm not mistaken, Rhett, at that time, Malik Willis had more total NFL snaps even than Josh Dobbs did.
That's correct.
When he started that game, and then he started again in the playoffs. So he had almost no experience. And because, again, it's been well documented, his brain power, he had, I guess, devoured the playbook to the point that he just went out there and ran the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the greatest offensive show on earth or anything, but he ran it.
Sure.
There was no limitation, it seemed like, with what he was doing.
Right.
So it's fun to watch.
And one of the more intriguing names of all of these that I read, I go back to Tyler Huntley, too, because I can't help but think, because I've watched that guy, you probably like me, I've watched him in the preseason the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm telling you, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but I just wonder if he can develop further. And because I don't know, I kind of like Tyler Huntley's game.
Well, the Ravens have done a good job picking backup quarterbacks over the years. I remember several of these guys playing in the preseason a few years ago, and maybe his rookie year, and they had another guy who was like an unheralded. Everybody played well. They just had a nice quarterback room. They were all complimentary of each other. When Huntley goes in, he runs similar style to what Lamar would run when he was in there. I mean, they won a lot of games with him playing quarter. He made the Pro Bowl last year, and I know lots of alternates make it, but literally not year before.
Right.
He was a Pro Bowl quarterback, and I know some people turned down the invitations anyway, but it is what it is. He did it and did the work. All right, hour number 2 coming up at the show. You want to jump in, 615-737-1045. If you missed anything from earlier, you missed Buck Reising, you want to check it out anywhere you consume your favorite podcast. You can consume Blaine and Mickey along with all your other favorite Zone shows. Also, for people who are asking, why is there no video today? We're having camera issues. Correct bananas. They are supposed to be corrected.
Hopefully by tomorrow.
Yes, hopefully by tomorrow. So you'll turn it on in the morning and you'll see RK Dub in all of their glory, hopefully on repaired cameras. Back, hour number 2, next.
Good afternoon. It is 2:03. I'm Joseph Bonanno. In NFL news, the San Francisco 49ers have fired defensive coordinator Steve Wilks after only one season. Head coach Kyle Shanahan stated it was not the right fit with the 49ers. Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel is going to have his hands full replacing yet another assistant coach, as Vols linebacker coach Brian Jean-Marie is returning to Michigan under the new head coach, Sharon Moore. Heupel lost running back coach Jerry Mack to the Jaguars earlier this week. Nashville Predators homestand continues tonight as they host the Central Division leading Dallas Stars at Bridgestone Arena. Puck drop set for 7 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit usstn.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Rhett Bryan hanging out for Blaine today, the executive producer of Titans Radio, today and tomorrow, hanging out for the Hitman. We're in the studio. All right, second hour of the show. This can be our show and your show. Got a couple callers on the line, 615-737-1045. Take your calls if you want to talk about the coordinators, the coaching staff, potential free agents. It's draft season. Rhett has already got his big board that he's working with Coach Mack, and they've got it behind closed doors. We don't get to see it, but we know that it exists. It's sort of like Bigfoot. You know, there's evidence of it. We don't ever see it, though, but we believe in it because people
There's
talk
more
about
than just the Zapruder film, though.
Yes, just the one grainy footage
Yes,
of him
yes,
walking
yes.
through the woods. I'll say this. In the studio, Bananas has on NFL Network. And so I just looked out the corner of my eye earlier, and it was Chiefs and 49ers, and the Chiefs are wearing red jerseys, and the 49ers are wearing their white jerseys and gold helmets and gold pants, and they keep showing the Super Bowl over and over again. Then I realized this isn't that one. This is the one from 4 years ago. I came to two great conclusions in my mind, Rhett, as we were finishing up that break. Literally, they're showing a close-up right now of Jimmy Garoppolo. The 49ers, a testament to just what they've built there. They've made the Super Bowl twice in the last 4 years. Now, think about how hard it is to get there. The Titans have been in one ever.
Yep.
They've made it twice in the last 4 years. And it's not a shot at anybody, but with Jimmy Garoppolo and with Brock Purdy playing quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The NFC always appears to be more open to me because this is 4 years ago. The Chiefs have been in like all of the Super Bowls since then. Maybe one they missed, the Bengals. Other than that, but they've been in 4 of the last 5 and won 3 of them. This is everything right here. This is just all kind of fallen in my mind.
Sure.
If you're
I'm looking at, and what I keep looking at is nameplates and see how much has changed.
Yep.
Because I see Frank Clark on defense for the
Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs, and he was gone not long after this. And there's Clyde Edwards. No, that's actually
that's Damian Williams.
Damian Williams.
And he
that's right.
took a year off from football and has just kind of bounced around since. He's never had more than like 450 yards rushing in a season.
Right.
He could have been the MVP of that
could
Super
have.
Bowl.
He
Really,
could
probably should have been.
And we're at the part where it's 8.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and
They're leading by 10 points.
Kansas City's trailing by 10, and we know what happens. There's Mahomes magic here.
As literally, I just saw a San Francisco defensive lineman getting held on that play, which we knew that happened last Sunday as well.
There we go.
Again, this is a testament to what the 49ers have done. They drafted a guy at the top of the first round. They traded up to get him. It didn't work out. But with a free agent, Jimmy Garoppolo, and with Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, a 7th-round pick, they've made the dang Super Bowl 2 times in the last 4 years. They have a great head coach, except for, it seems like, in the Super Bowl. Now, he disciplined himself so much, though, for his actions that he fired the defensive coordinator.
Yep.
He told himself, I'll show you. He can't fire himself, so he fired Steve Wilks. That's a whole nother can of worms.
That's right.
But if you're an NFC team, you got to be thinking, look, man, we got to build a team. The 49ers kind of proof there's other ways of doing it besides a first-day number 1 top pick quarterback.
And to your point, I mean, the Bengals have made it once with Joe Burrow.
Yep.
But think about this. The Buffalo Bills has made it 0 times with Josh Allen.
How many times has Lamar been an MVP? 2?
Mm-hmm.
No Super Bowl appearances.
Right.
That bunch in red, and they call it gold, but it's yellow. I mean, that's who you got to gear up to beat. If you're the Titans, everything you're doing down there now, and I learned a lot. I always talk about this from Blaine and Dyson and Frank and all those guys. And I would always ask, and I still ask Blaine questions. I ask Dyson questions when I get to see him. I would always ask Frank questions. They all talked about Fisher's philosophy was build a team that can win your division, because then that means you're always in the playoffs. Build a team that can win your division. So if you're the Titans, first of all, you got to build a team that can, looks like now, beat the Texans, although they've had trouble beating anybody the last couple of years within the division. C.J. Stroud was Rookie of the Year. They had the offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year, both, taken in, first round last year.
Mm-hmm.
Their coach got the same amount of first-place votes as the guy who won it of Coach of the Year. He just had one less first-place vote, but he had more of the other votes, so he lost on a technicality.
Mm-hmm.
They've messed around and built something after bungling their way through, the end of the Bill O'Brien era into the next three coaches, getting to D'Amico Ryans. But, who knows what's going to happen with the Colts, what Richardson's going to be.
And how did the Jacksonville Jaguars rebound after a massive fail? And, the thing with them, in my opinion, with Jacksonville is making sure that Trevor Lawrence is upright and healthy, which, he had some dings last year. And they were missing some pieces throughout that due to injury bugs. Like when Christian Kirk was not in that offense, it wasn't the same.
Yeah.
So, the division is super competitive. And, like you said, Anthony Richardson's going to come back from the shoulder. There's lots of work to do. That's why they did the press conference yesterday and got back to work.
Sure did. Let's get back to work on the phones. We got Bob, we got Mark, we got you if you want to join the discussion. Bob is up first in the second hour of Blaine and Mickey. What's up, Bob?
Hey, guys, I got in the car late, so I don't know which backup quarterbacks y'all are talking about, but did y'all mention A.J. McCarron, since he already has a relationship with the coach?
You know what? Since I printed the list that I read off of, I printed it, and then he was released. So that's one we didn't mention. Bob, that's a good catch by you.
All right. That's all I was just wondering, because he'd probably be on the cheap, too.
Yeah.
Agreed. And he's a guy that, he had a start against the Titans when he was with the Texans. I mean, he's had some reps himself.
It's funny. We were talking about, Rhett, this was right around the first week of the season last year. And we were just trying to think of if they wanted another guy to come in and put in the mix. If they wanted, maybe it was after Levis got hurt. We didn't know how hurt he was. Something was going on. And we were like, man, who could you add right now? And that was the name that I brought up. Was
A.J.
it?
McCarron?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he certainly is familiar with the Bengals system. I don't remember how long he was there, but he was there. Mark in the Borough up next to talk about the Titans coaching staff. Hello, Mark.
Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
Another day, another blessing. But I would say, to start off, that Vrabel getting fired was the best thing that could have ever happened to this team in this era. It's shaking up the whole AFC South, in my opinion. Especially what is having us and I think the Texans, having the cap room top 5 as far as cap, or top 10 at least. But my question to you guys is, with us getting this new stadium pretty soon, and I think we just hired as a VP or assistant coach or something like that, but from the Raiders. And I know that I don't know the guy's name, but I know that they just built a new stadium, and then they're also prepping for a Super Bowl. They just had to go through a prepping for the Super Bowl prior to the Super Bowl, of course. That's a major process. That's a major, bringing the coaching staff together, bringing the organization together, the community and the players, and saying, hey, I know we're building a new stadium. I know we're about to prepare for a Super Bowl. And things could go outside of football and could affect the team. What do you guys think as far as coaching staff? Did that may have had a role in bringing some of the coaches in? I'll hang up the list.
Appreciate it, Mark. I'll say this, and I think what Mark was trying to say, it can be a thing where this team can be on the rise again to be competitive about the time they open the doors at the new Nissan Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's accurate. And look, and of course, that building's going to attract everything in the world. I mean, they're going to get a shot at, I think, college football playoffs and a bowl game here and the Super Bowl. And I fully anticipate Nashville will have a Super Bowl within the first 2 or 3 years that thing's open. But yeah, I think that cyclically, I think they're looking to sync up the timing where they can be competing when it's time to put rear ends and seats a little further back on the east bank of the Cumberland River.
I sent you a question last night, Rhett. I'm curious because you've really started to study the draft. You sent us this list of free agents. We've been kind of digging through it, starting to see your Dane Brugler top 50 prospects or top 100 prospects, Field Yates, all these lists. And everybody, Pro Football Focus, everybody's starting to make these lists of the top 100 free agents or top 25 or 50 or whatever it may be. It seems like each year, because it's two completely different highways to travel to get where you're trying to get to with roster building. As you look down each one, is there maybe a better way to go down one to get certain positions? Is there maybe a better way to go down the other one to get certain positions? You know, maybe the tackle is something you got to draft, the left tackle. Maybe a right tackle is something that's available in free agency or a guard. You know, maybe a receiver could be found. Anyway, let's get into that next. Free agency versus the draft as a way to build this Titans team the way they need to build it to be competitive again. And maybe you can't get it done in a year, but as quickly as possible. All that, more of your phone calls next, too, if you want to jump in the discussion. 615-737-1045.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Oh, bananas. Every song we mention is showing up in the playlist
there
today.
It is.
William Joel. One of the coolest moments ever for Billy Joel. He came and did like a, experience Billy Joel at Vanderbilt. And the kid from the crowd got up and played, was it New York State of Mind with him.
Isn't that wild?
Do you remember that video?
I do.
I showed it to my daughter the other day. That's almost like 20 years old now, I think.
And where was this at Vanderbilt's campus? Was this at Memorial?
No, it was in an auditorium of some type.
Okay, and this is going to sound like bragging camp for the whole show, because I've been talking about old music places and things I've been able to see and do. Philip Noel of Titans Radio and myself, when we were much, much younger and cutting our chops in this business, he and I got tickets and went one night at Memorial Gym and saw George Carlin do stand-up.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was fantastic. Oh, it was so good. Never forget it. What a funny guy.
I saw the Donnas and Kings of Leon there in Memorial Gym. It's the only concert I've ever seen there.
How about that?
Yeah. Kings of Leon blew my mind. They were
pretty good, huh?
So good.
Yeah, buddy.
They were so good. I would love to see them again. Need to do that. All right. They got their lineup settled. The Titans have got to get their lineup settled. So Rhett and I are throwing around some show ideas. Rhett has immersed himself in the draft. Again, he and the Coach Mac big board. It's locked up. It's got a security guard. It's climate controlled. It's amazing the care that they go to with this thing. It won't see direct sunlight ever because it might disintegrate. But Rhett's also been sending us, I call it the Rhett file. I would hold it up to the video. If you're watching on Zone TV, you can't see us today.
You can show them tomorrow when the cameras are fixed.
I have a Rhett file. So this is the 2024 Rhett file. I usually go with the legal size because you used to print some legal size stuff.
Yep.
You seem to have gone away from that. So I just instinctively grabbed the regular size this year.
Good by you. Good on you.
But started to look at look at all these guys at the combine list, 321 guys. And you had sent us the free agency list. And again, all these other lists are starting to come out now. And so top 2024 free agents by position. We talked about some of the quarterback potential earlier, but wanted to talk to you about this. Titans need a left tackle. They need a left tackle. That's something that's got to happen. They tried a Band-Aid with it last year with Andre Dillard. It didn't work. We know that Twice Daily didn't work. But this is a team that for the longest time in the existence of this team that you covered since it got here over a quarter of a century, Brad Hopkins, Michael Roos, Taylor Lewan.
It's a legacy position that you didn't have to worry about left tackle for the better part of 3 decades.
Think about that.
Yeah, it's something else.
They were known for that. I mean, if you can just write down every 10 plus years, coach needs your, starting lineup. Okay. Brad Hopkins. Then Michael Roos just steps right in and 9 years plays that position fantastically. Okay. Going to draft Taylor Lewan. Remember at the first, maybe he's a right tackle. No, he's a left tackle. He's a really, really good one. 3 guys for almost 3 decades.
It's a poor correlation, but it's like the coaching situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've had 3 coaches in 50-plus years.
That's one of the most insane stats.
Chuck Noll to
Bill
Cowher to now Coach T. Pretty wild.
That's one of the most insane things. It's 50 how many years? When did Chuck Noll take over?
It was late 60s. It's over 50 years.
Yeah, it's over 50 years. It's well over 50 years now. For sure it is. I'm thinking people look at this because we'll get in discussions and people drop something in the F&M Bank chat or they'll call Mike and Gallatin. We'll get to you in just a minute. We'll start talking about left tackles and we'll say, well, you just can't get one in free agency. You just can't find one. If you want an elite one, they never get let go. And ultimately somebody will drop, well, remember this guy or there was that one time or – you can get Tyron Smith right now.
But Tyron Smith is in his 30s.
Yes, and has been beat up and missed game.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the list, and I put question marks by 2 or 3 guys. George Fant, who played with the Houston Texans, who we taled about maybe
a lot
coming
last year.
That's right. But Jonah Williams of the Bengals, I thought about that for a minute. Mekhi Becton has been up and down since he was drafted and went to New York. Tyron Smith, you just mentioned. And again, I'm not disparaging any of these guys, but to me, with the way this draft is setting up, it's a good draft for tackles, and you can get a left and a right tackle in this draft if you wanted, and certainly if you stuck with that notion at 7. But I looked at George Fant, Jonah Williams, but you need a left tackle. So anyway, I feel better about them attacking some of the interior offensive linemen maybe through free agency, because Kevin Zeitler with the Ravens, Dalton Reisner with the Vikings, Robert Hunt of the Miami Dolphins, who started his career at tackle and bumped inside to guard. How about John Runyon's son? Runyon, young John Runyon of the Green Bay Packers.
Little John.
Those are just 3, that's 4 guys right there that I thought about interior offensive linemen. But yeah, the wide receiver is somebody you can look at in free agency, but there's good wide receivers in this draft. You and I talked before we started the show. Roma Dunze is ridiculous. I mean, look, pie in the sky, no limit. You've got the pick there. Okay, Marvin Harrison Jr., great, lovely. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to be there at 7. But Roma Dunze, oh my gosh, I think he's a really good wide receiver. Both receivers from LSU, Malik Neighbors and Brian Wilson. I think both of those guys good. There's good value throughout this draft. And not just, I mean, you got slot receivers, big outside guys, whatever you want. Look, it's that way almost every year because it's a skill position, and where we always say 7-on-7 changed the world, and these guys playing 7-on-7. But if you look at free agent wide receivers, I keep saying it, Gabriel Davis of the Buffalo Bills, I'd really like to have him. Darnell Mooney from the Bears, not too shabby. How about bringing Van Jefferson home? Wouldn't hate that. Oh, how about Jawan Jennings, speaking of bringing somebody home? How about Devin Duvernay of the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah,
and there's an interesting tight end, Mick. There's an interesting tight end that I've had my eye on, and I watched him when he came out 4 years ago, is Harrison Bryant of the Cleveland Browns. Big, tall guy, 6'5", 6'6", 240, 250, something like that. And not a lot of tread taken off the tires. Only 89 catches in the 4 years he's been a Brown. And you're like, well, Rhett, why would you want somebody that unproven? But of those 89 catches, 10 receiving touchdowns.
Remind everybody, though, who was playing opposite of him at the same position. Who
David
gets
Njoku, another one that I really like.
An alien from another planet.
But so anyway, there's some guys in free agency. And look, a center, we talked about maybe a center, Tyler Biadasz of the Cowboys. I mean, there's an idea. How about Willie Gay Jr. at linebacker? How about Javon Kinlaw? I mean, some of these guys are going to cost you a bunch. L'Jarius Sneed, I know Blaine loves L'Jarius Sneed.
Yeah,
he's going to be the top corner in free agency.
I want to say he was about $17 million per estimated on Spot Track.
That sounds right.
17, yeah. I think
but some of these things are better. For the tackle part of it, I'd rather just them address that in the draft so that you can have them under a rookie contract and continue to develop them. Whereas you're not having to because let's face it, when you're taking anybody in free agency, you're usually overpaying for them anyway. And you can really overpay in key spots: edge, pass rusher, corner, quarterback, tackle, the key spots that you're always looking for.
Harold and T.N. Berg in the F&M Bank chats, a lot of letters, are having a back and forth. Harold said, please rank the positions by need in whether draft or free agency. And T.N. Berg just said left tackle, cornerback, wide receiver. I think that's just like T.N. Berg's view of they have to have a left tackle. Literally, they have one starting cornerback under contract, Roger.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. And then receiver.
Right. And I would go further. And we're going down the list here. So there's those 3, totally agree with that. And let's go interior offensive line.
Yeah.
Let's go inside linebacker.
Yeah.
We need a safety. You need another safety.
Well, who's the other guy besides Hooker right now?
That's what I'm saying. You probably
Season
need
starts tomorrow. Who's the other starter? Some guy's not on the team, right?
More than likely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would go in that order down through there. And again, I think you can add 1 or 2 tackles in this draft, and you could even add an interior offensive line because there's some good interior.
Yeah.
There's good centers, good guards in this draft. Now, there's going to be differences of opinion when you talk about some of these positions where the Titans have needs, and there'll be places where there's drop-offs. Like let's just say tight end was going to be the need, hypothetically. Well, It's Brock Bowers and it's everybody else.
Yeah.
The next tight end in this draft is Jatavian Sanders from Texas, who I think is really good. He's just not a Brock Bowers. But when you're talking tackle, Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu are the conversation right now. Joe Alt of Notre Dame, Olu Fashanu from Penn State. Joe Alt is the more polished. He's the Peter Skoronski of the tackles this year.
But
Plug him in.
Is he the Skoronski that's a tackle of tackles this year?
He is the Skoronski that's a tackle of tackles at 6'8", 322 pounds.
Okay.
Plug him in and next to Skoronski and go. Fashanu, I think, yes, but Fashanu is the more athletic of those two. But you're getting a guy like Tali Fuaga, who was a right tackle at Oregon State, who a lot of people believe his talent translates to the left side of the line.
How crazy is that, though? Because most of the time they'd be like, well, he played left tackle there, but he's a right tackle. How crazy is it to think you could take somebody from college and move them in the pros to left tackle?
And the thing is, I can't remember. I want to say he played 1,500 snaps at right tackle. Mostly right tackle.
Yeah.
There's some people that believe the J.C. Latham from Alabama, same thing, who played predominantly right tackle for Alabama. So an interior offensive lineman, Jackson Powers Johnson, I've been talking about for months, out of Oregon, is one. There's a young man who's a center that's been invited to the combine from West Virginia, who I think is going to be really nice. And there's even some guys in day 2 and day 3 that can help you. And guards, there's good guards in this draft too. And there's tiers where they drop off and you put them in another pod or tier.
T.N. Berg says one big signing is going to chew up a fourth of our cap space in a flash. Depends on who the big signing is.
Yeah, because if you're going for a splash signing to try to get people excited, that may be very well true. It may be right. But in talking, and this is something we're thinking about, we've been discussing the coordinators and head coach Brian Callahan talking yesterday at the availability, thinking about the other availability that we had with Rand Carthon when he was discussing the progress of the coaching search and that they had, relieved Mike Vrabel of his duties. Somebody asked him about cap, I believe, that day, if I'm not mistaken, and he said, they're still going to approach this, as you say, balling on a budget kind of thing. You don't want to you've just cleared the credit card, right? You maxed your credit card out.
Paid it.
You're down to a zero balance now, pretty much, and you don't want to load back up on that thing and go, all I can do now is make the minimum monthly payment. It takes 56 years to pay it off. You've gotten out of salary cap jail. So you want to be careful about what you can do. And, of course, that's the stuff behind the curtain we don't know as to what the offense players and what their makeups are like that goes best with this Brian Callahan offense. And that applies both to the draft process and these draftees and also the free agents that are going to be available. And we're looking hypothetical right now with these free agents anyway because we're just a few days away from having the open window for franchise tags. Yeah. And then the other thing that people have to think about, there may be somebody that's not on this free agent list that you could also get that becomes available because other teams are in salary cap trouble. And you go, okay, we can take that that salary and we'll, we could do a trade, work out a trade and maybe get somebody who wouldn't be normally available on this free agent list.
Well, and there are always going to be cut candidates. There's guys who are surprise cuts and, that goes right up until the final roster building in fall where one of the things I had to learn when the Titans first came here, when I first started to cover the team, was they'd say, well, this is the team. And then inevitably, like a rookie would get cut and some vet would get cut for game one.
You have the final 53, and then you have the active 48 on game day of week 1. And it sometimes it's two different things, especially when you get the back half dozen players or so.
Let's get Travis in here. Travis, thanks for calling Blaine and Mickey. Say hey to Rhett Bryan.
Hey, how's it going, Rhett? How you doing?
Good, man. How about you?
Oh, man, I'm hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit.
There it is. I like it.
All right.
Hey, I just had a little comment. I was listening to you talk about the offensive lineman, and yes, we have always had a good left tackle, it seems, like you said, It went from Hopkins to Roos to Lawan. But the winning always seemed to follow whether or not we had a good center. Because we had Long and I believe Matthews at first, and then we had a lull there where we didn't win very much, and then we turned around and we got Kevin Mawai, and then CJ goes for 2K, and then immediately after Mawai retired, it was another down year for CJ 2K. So, and then we got Ben Jones, and the winning picked back up again, and then he retires, and the winning goes back down.
Yeah.
So I think we should focus on getting us a good center, probably in free agency, because from what I understand, several of those came from free agency.
Yeah, centers can be found in free agency for sure because they may have a contract number that a team would say, look, we're paying our left tackle, we're paying our left guard, we can't pay everybody a premium market price. Or maybe you get the center who's just was a good player. He was a later round draft pick. He's trapped behind somebody else and his contract just runs out. But, yeah, Kevin Mawai was a fantastic free agent signing for this team.
He was, and that was after that salary cap purge, just like you're talking about. And he and Chris Hope and David Thornton, those guys were brought in as a stabilizing force because they all of a sudden got really young at once. And you're kind of seeing some of that with this again, although you still have a Jeffrey Simmons and you have an Amani Hooker. You have some veterans that are there in place. But, yeah, I mean, you can get some decent centers in free agency, and you can get some that are draft eligible. Zach Frazier from West Virginia is the kid I was talking about that we're going to see at the Combine here in a couple of weeks. And obviously, Cedric Van Pran from Georgia. Charles Turner from LSU is a guy that's probably day 3 that really made an impression on me at the Senior Bowl that I like. Jackson Powers Johnson is the one I keep mentioning from Oregon, who was at the Senior Bowl, and he had a nagging injury that knocked him out of the next day and the rest of the practices. But there's stuff to be had. There is.
One final segment, hanging out with Rhett Bryan. Phone still ringing, 615-737-1045. We'll continue this discussion. Free agents versus drafted rookies, even undrafted guys. The Titans have had good luck with that, even in the J-Rob era. And recently, they've seemed to have found guys off the street, rookie, undrafted free agents who've been contributors to this team. We'll pick up this discussion again on the other side. One more segment of Blaine and Mickey hanging out with Rhett Bryan today, executive producer of Titans Radio. Well, Bananas has been on it today. Just playing the hits,
Lovely
man.
bump music by
Just a
Bananas.
fantastic job by Joey Bananas. Joey Bananas is on top of things. Rhett Bryan on top of things for Blaine today. On top of the phones, Thad and Titan Woman on the line. Who was up first? Titan Woman was actually... No, it's Thad. We'll get to Thad, then we'll get to... I want to get to him in order. Thad, then Titan Woman. Hello, Thad. What you got for us?
Hey, fellas. How are y'all?
Good.
Hey, I wanted to reach out, and I apologize. I'm actually at the dump right now trying to dump some trash. When I heard about the press conference, right, my first question was, what's Coach Wilson going to do as far as base defense? And I've been watching football long enough to know that most defenses aren't base defense, 2-3-5, 3-5, what have you. But the reason why I thought about that was I've been a Titans fan for a long time. I've been a football fan for a long time. We used to be a 4-3, and the year that we changed from a 4-3 to a 3-4, Gerald Casey had like 10 and a half sacks. He was a 4-3 DT. And I guess my question is directly to Mr. Rhett Bryan, which it's good to talk to you, man. I hear you on the radio all the time.
Thank you, Thad.
I'm a big fan. Will the philosophy change as far as like base defense, 2-3, 3-4, 4-3, what have you? Do you think that would negatively or positively impact any of our existing players under contract?
Thank you,
and if you don't mind, I'll stay on the phone for just a second.
Okay.
All right. It's getting loud there at the dump.
And he's got a puppy dog with him, and he's trying to take care of business. I understand going to the dump when you don't have garbage service. You live a little out of the skirts there. So, Thad, I would answer it this way. First of all, Dennard Wilson was asked about that yesterday. He's like, look, let me see who we have playing.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think some of that, and it may sound silly, but I think some of it's going to hinge on Jeffrey Simmons. Like, he's your best defensive player. He's one of the best handful of players you have. And so how will it affect him and his, being able to get back onto the playing surface and wreak havoc like he wants to do? I think that's the start of it. And I don't know if it's going to be, 3-4 to a 4-3 or not. It's a wait and see. I know that's not a great answer, Thad, and I appreciate you calling. Appreciate you listening. But I think that's a film at 11, as they say in the television business.
I wrote down this quote, too. He was, Dennard Wilson was talking about, he said, we're going to be an attacking defense. We're going to blitz, but when we blitz, it's going to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
So, he came from
and talking about the
Williams
timing of it,
school,
and it's not going to be reckless. It's not going to be blitzing because we're just blitzing. Yeah, it's going to be, and look, he knows coming from where he just came from, Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, you rush 4 and you cover everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get them and you get them down, it's because you've got a coverage sack and you've taken care of business. You're going to come after them with a blitz, and they are going to make you pay, and sometimes in the most severe way.
Well, if you want to see what successful blitzing looks like, watch the Super Bowl when it comes on again and watch what Steve Spagnuolo did. And he literally had 49ers guards pulling to leave an empty space for Chris Jones to run through. They got so bamboozled at times.
And that's what you want with Jeffrey Simmons in this.
Yep. He sent corners. It was a beautiful thing to watch.
Yes, indeed.
It really was.
Luxurious Sneed.
Titan Woman, thank you for calling. How's it going?
Hey, guys. I was just going to say, happy post-Valentine's Day. I hope you had a great day.
Well, thank you. Hope you did too.
Thank you. And my prayers are out to all the Kansas City players and the team, all the people that are out there. My prayers are out there for them. Hope they're all getting better. And to you guys, I love you guys. You're doing very good. And I'm just waiting for the defense to really help us get through this because I think we can do it. We can do it. We can do it in 2024. We're going to go all the way to the Super Bowl. So I'm there with you.
Ooh, Titan
All right,
Woman.
Titan Woman, with the positivity. That's
dropping.
one way to finish this thing up. I like it.
And we're going to finish with one more. We're like Thelma and Louise, man. We're going to drive this car. We're just going to keep driving.
I'm with you.
Ryan in Lebanon, our final caller of the day. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, guys. Love the show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So, quick question. So, what if the Titans trade up and go after a guy like the wide receiver from Ohio State, Harrison, or do you see him trade up and try to take a tackle there or a center? I know there's a lot of noise around that. Rhett B, I just want to get your take, man, and hey, I can't wait for draft day because you guys, I love listening to you guys on draft day.
Appreciate it, Ryan. You're very kind. Thank you. First of all, I wouldn't take a center that high. Wouldn't take a guard that high. That would be, something that you would, in terms of trading up. And here's the other part of it. Trading up costs you so much capital, and they don't have it because they don't have a third-round pick, and they've got some sevens sitting back there. I think they have 8 total picks. If you were going to trade up at all, you would be doing it to trade up for either Marvin Harrison Jr. that you mentioned, or you're going to be trading up for a quarterback more than likely. And I don't necessarily see that. That doesn't mean it can't happen.
Yeah.
But in fact, I think if you depend on what tackle is sitting there. Now, look, again, if by some magical thing has happened and Marvin Harrison Jr. is sitting at 7, you better go. But
that decision makes itself.
I could see them maybe even trading back to try to get the third-round pick back. But no, you would not do that for a center for sure. And that's where, Ryan, the Titans are going to be kind of sitting in the sweet spot in the catbird seat at 7 because it's a quarterback draft. Those things are so much different from the other stuff. And then when you start factoring in edge pass rushers and corners and the top wide receivers, but the quarterback is what's going to dictate this thing. And if you've got somebody moving up because of J.J. McCarthy or Bo Nix or whoever past those first 2 or 3 quarterbacks, their guy, whoever this hypothetical team is, that phone may ring and Rand Carthon may be able to make a deal that gets them more capital that they're looking for.
I know Joey Bananas is about to start playing the Eagles here. It's time for us to go. But, I could definitely see them going back before going forward. They need lots and lots of assets. Even if Harrison might be gone, maybe Roma Dunze is there, maybe Neighbors, if that's really what they wanted to do. Brock Bowers, if they really want an offensive weapon. If not, it sure looks like both of those tackles could be there. But like we always say, if you don't need a quarterback, you need quarterbacks to get
protected
as popular as they can.
Yes.
To keep pushing more people towards you and give you trade opportunities. All right. I wouldn't trade this last 2 hours for anything, but we got to go because it is over. 3HL is coming up next.
In the meantime.
In between time.
Peace.